Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. I'm Jacob Billington, joined with Zach Martin and Justin Giampietro. And we are here for the first series preview for the second round of the playoffs. Congratulations to you two for getting to cover the second round of the playoffs. Zach, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Can't complain. We know when game or round two starts surprisingly early, but yeah, it's fun to still be doing this. So can't complain.
Awesome. Justin, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I know this is kind of normal for him, not for me. Actually, you know what? Aside from that COVID year, I've been watching the Flyers since 2013. This is the first time I've ever seen them in the second round with fans, so it's a little new for me.
Yeah, it's a strange world, and to be honest, I wasn't certain that I'd be seeing you in this video, Justin. Zach, I had some confidence that I'd be seeing you, but covering the Senators, I was hoping for not seeing you here. But
I mean, that's fair.
either way, here we are. You guys are getting lined up for second round bout between two metropolitan teams, two very different teams. Right now, we got the Hurricanes, this is their ninth season of making a run in the playoffs, at least past the first round. And Justin, welcome to the playoffs, like you said. The Flyers team is as young as you are, as young as I am as well. It's just they're so young and fun. They've got some guys they've got Couturier, and Sanheim's been there forever, but they're just such a young team, and they're running with it, and they're doing really well. So I want to start in the first round, and I'll start with you on this, Justin. How did the Philadelphia Flyers get through the Pittsburgh Penguins? How did they get to the second round?
Well, it was kind of a tale of two halves of the series. I would say in the first half, the Flyers were legitimately the better team. They played the style that they wanted to play. It was very, defensive. They didn't give up many rush chances. They actually got a ton of breakaways in game one. I don't think they converted on a single one of them, but they definitely had the Penguins number in that first game. Crosby didn't do anything at all, and they just kind of, they got some shots to go in. That Porter Martone shot at the end of game one was really cool, and that's how they won. And in game two, it was kind of a similar formula where, they didn't generate much, but they weren't giving up anything, and then they score that shorthanded goal, and it really put the game away. Game three was a bit chaotic, where there were a ton of penalties, and I don't know, they just converted on their power plays. Then they started playing poorly. They were outplayed in games 4 and 5, I would say pretty badly. And then game 6, it was kind of the similar formula to the earlier part of the series where, yeah, they were giving up a lot of chances, but they didn't give up super high danger ones, and they rode Dan Vladar to that victory. Of course, they score an overtime winner to win the series, but it was Vladar who really kept them in it the whole way.
Yeah, Vladar has been an unbelievable story this season. Playing over 50 games after just the career that he had if you told me in September, October that the Flyers would be here and Vladar has had the season and now the playoffs that he's been having, don't know if I'd believe you. Yeah, it's been really fun to watch. And then Martone, of course, he's lighting it up. A few interesting decisions, like seeing Garnet Hathaway. I was really shocked to see him scratched. He was pretty good to start the series, but it made sense to scratch him. But it was still just must have been a tough decision for Tocchet. But so they definitely did deal with their own adversity, not as much in terms of they were on the brink of losing or anything like that. But internally, there were some decisions to make, and then Michkov scratched, of course. So yeah, here they are. It wasn't necessarily a clear path to get to the second round, but they made pretty light work of the Penguins for the most part. Speaking of making pretty light work, Zach, I'll move on to you. 4-game sweep. The Hurricanes are well rested. We see that Alexander Nikishin is ready to come back, or it looks like he is. It looks like Nikolai Ehlers is going to be fine. Yep. A pretty healthy roster heading into round 2. What do you make of it? How did they get here?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because I know when we did our preview, I said Hurricanes in 6. I thought, the Senators being where they were, I thought, they were going to, take some games and force it to go a bit longer. But yeah, surprisingly enough, the Hurricanes and, just seemed like with Dan Vladar, Frederick Anderson, you're talking about a 1.1 goals against average and 955 save leads the whole playoffs in both categories. I think it was definitely special teams really helped too. Not so much the power play for the Hurricanes where they were 4th in the regular season. I mean, they went 2 for 15. It wasn't the worst. I mean, their teams are worse in the playoffs overall. But I think it was the penalty kill that really helped out, especially in game 4 where it was like I think it was 4 5-on-3s the Senators had, and the fact that I think the Hurricanes went like 8 for 9 on the penalty kill that night, and they went like 20 for 21 in the series. I think that's what really helped them out was just the PK shutting them down. Anderson, giving only 5 goals in like 273 minutes, like almost equivalent to like 14 periods of hockey. I think that really helped out too, and I think just I think the top lines, kind of neutralized themselves, but it was that second line of Hall, Stankoven, and Blake that a lot of people were looking at being like they could get eaten up by the Shane Pinto line. It was actually the reverse because that line in total got 16 points combined, with Hall getting 7. It was kind of surprising for the fact that how quick this series was. Like I said, I thought this was going 6. I was not expecting 4, but it's system against system, and I think it's the overall experience of the Hurricanes kind of showed everyone's like, all right, if you want to pick against us, fine, but we'll show you what a more seasoned system that the Senators play looks like.
Yeah, and I mean, like you mentioned, special teams was the factor in that series. If whether it be Ottawa's power play being a bit better or Carolina's power or penalty kill being just a little bit worse, could be a totally different series. Like it's 1 or 2 goals could have made the whole difference in that series. And yeah, it was like the Hurricanes just dominated. And like you said, with that second line, they were unbelievable. Logan Stankoven and Taylor Hall both have a legit argument for the Conn Smythe Trophy at this moment. And then Freddie Anderson, he was dynamite in round 1. There were a lot of questions. A lot of people wanting to go to Bussy for game 1. Anderson, he showed up, and that's the biggest thing for them. So I'll stick with you, Zach. What are you going to be looking for in round 2? Whether it's something that they have to keep doing, something that's going to change, or is it going to be some of these guys coming back from injury? What are you going to be keeping an eye on?
Going back to special teams for a little bit, because I think that's the one thing for me where I'm really looking at, because I know the Hurricanes, like I said, they went 2 for 15. As of now, when we record, they are 10th out of all the teams, 13.3%. I know they're a little bit higher than the Flyers, who are 11.8, but I'm looking at the Hurricanes to kind of get back to where they were that top 4 team, going into the playoffs. Because last year I think they had like 3 power play goals between like January and the start of the playoffs, and they had 10. You're hoping that it's not the reverse where they're so good in the regular season, but then they kind of just go kind of quiet in the postseason. So I'm looking at the power play to kind of be back to where that top 5 dominance that it is and matches what the PK's been doing, because now you get Jacob Slavin back, healthy, playing, he only played, I think he played like 38 games, which is crazy to think about. But now with him back, the PK's gotten better now with the fact that you're looking at the power play, and on top of that, I'm looking at, Shane Gostisbehere. I'm looking for him to kind of 5-on-5 power play, be that guy, because when he's rolling offensively, the blue line dynamic is completely different and the power play feels different too. And for the fact that he's going against the team that he was with for the longest, I think that'll be a fun, interesting matchup to see how that plays out. And then I'm looking at that top line. I'm looking at, because they were neutralized, Aho, Jarvis, and Svechnikov. They had 5 points, but 4 of them came in game 4, and they were on empty netters. I mean, and Svechnikov had a good series. It's just he didn't score, but he had 18 shots. He was very impactful. But I'm looking at that top line to take this series as they are going to put more of their imprint on the series rather than just getting all their points in one game off of empty netters. I'm looking for them to be what you expect out of that top line of, guys who are, on another tier in terms of what you're looking at, what they can do offensively, defensively, two-way, special teams, and all that type of stuff. So that's where I'm looking at. It's that top line to kind of get kicking into gear. And then finally, can Freddie Anderson keep this going? If not, luckily they have Bussy. They got Peter Kochetkov back too. It's just looking at the goaltending. Are you able to stop a young Flyers team with all of their firepower too, and even Travis, Konechny and some of the veterans on that side.
Yeah, I mean, that top line, especially in the first 2 games, they were invisible. Not necessarily in a bad way. They weren't doing anything offensively, but they weren't letting Ottawa do anything on their offense either. Like they were serviceable for sure, but they just weren't standing out like you'd kind of hope for them. Aho was one of the biggest concerns that I would have had going into the playoffs if I was the Senators, and they did a good job shutting him down. Now they just need the Hurricanes are going to need to get him back, and then Svechnikov and Jarvis will kind of bounce back off that as well.
Yeah.
Justin, what about you? What are you going to be watching for? I mean, there's a lot. Is this too many games in a row for Dan Vladar? Like, is he going to need a break? What about Michkov? What's it going to be? What are going to be some of the biggest storylines?
Well, for me, what I'm looking for in game one is, first of all, their play style, how they approach this thing, and how it translates. Tocchet did say that they're going to kind of keep what they had going against Pittsburgh. The problem is that everything that they tried to do against Pittsburgh, I think Carolina can take advantage of that because they're very good on the forecheck, probably the best forechecking team in the league, whereas Pittsburgh just couldn't get anything going there. So I want to see if their play style works because they let the Penguins have the best shot attempt share in the entire first round, at least as we're speaking now. And it wasn't very close either. The Flyers just kind of hung in there and let the Penguins have as many shots as they wanted, just as long as none of them were off the rush. And against a team like Carolina, that's a little worrying because they're more talented. They have better shooters. They have better passers. They're better on the forecheck. Their depth is better. So I'm looking at that and to see, how it'll translate against a team that good.
Yeah, and it's tough because like we said earlier at the start, the Hurricanes have been here. This is nothing new to them. And like I mentioned in our Hurricane Senators preview, one focus for them, I think, would have had to been, okay, our biggest concern is getting through the third round, but to get there, you have to get through the first and second, and they didn't step back at all, which is great. And I don't think they'll do that in the second round either. And a big thing for them is that they can kind of match anybody's play style. The Flyers can't do that. The Flyers have their play style, but I don't think they're in a position that they can kind of adjust to other teams' play styles and beat them at their own game or anything like that. I think that's going to be where the Hurricanes really shine in this series.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. All right, players to watch. So this can be where we can dive into a couple specific players, maybe 2 or 3 if you have them. So, Zach, I'll go to you. Who are you going to be keeping an eye on from the Hurricanes?
Yeah, like I said, I'm really looking at Shane Gostisbehere. I think this is the first time in a span of 4 games he was held pointless, so I'm really curious to see what he does against the Flyers because, like I said, when you look at him and when he's going offensively, whether it's 5-on-5 or on the power play, you feel that dynamic shift on the blue line because the fact that you got Slavin and Chatfield together, more of a defensive pairing, but they can be kind of sneaky offensively when they want to be. You got that Miller Walker line that has been pretty dynamic for the Hurricanes and just how offensively those guys are, but with Walker defensively is really well, but with Gostisbehere with Nikishin, that's kind of being able to help the younger, defensemen learn the system and learn how to be offensive, but also still able to let, Gostisbehere do what he does. I mean, if he didn't miss, I think he played like 55 games this year, he would have broken Brent Burns' single season record for points by a defenseman. So I think just where he's at, if he's going, that's going to be huge for the Hurricanes. So he's someone I'm looking at to kind of, start lighting the lamp, either, like I said, either even strength or on special teams. And then, like I said, going back to, I'm looking at Jarvis, I'm looking at Svechnikov, I'm looking at Aho, because you need those guys to get rolling. Because, the depth is great. Marnik has scored, Stahl's gotten some points. You're looking at, Carey, Robinson, and all of them. But, that second line led the way. But now it's like, okay, you got through the first round. And I'm not saying no round is easy in the playoffs, but if you want to, hit the ground running now in the second round to prepare, knock on wood for Eastern Conference Final, this is where you need your top line of those 3 to really get rolling. Because then when you go into that next round, however this round plays out, you need to be ready for whoever's sitting on the other side of that table, rather if it's Montreal, Tampa, or Buffalo. You got to be ready for one of those guys. So I think this is a round where you need that top line to be humming before you move on to the next one.
Feeling good to count out the Bruins at this point already, are you?
Yeah, pretty much. Hey, if I'm wrong, so be it. But I don't know. Some of the Bruins, I just don't feel like Buffalo's a little bit too much for them. But that's all I'll say on that.
No, I don't either. But with that much confidence, you just mark down the Bruins are going to go to the final, beating the Hurricanes in the conference final.
Oh 100%. Gosh! Oh, don't put that voodoo on me, Ricky Bobby.
Justin, what about you? Who are you going to be keeping an eye on with the Flyers?
Yeah, I'm going to be looking at guys who can create offense in a defensive environment. Someone like Trevor Zegras, who's very good at starting rushes, even in a sort of defensive system where both teams are kind of preventing rushes against each other because they just go back and forth and back and forth. Zegras is the type of guy who can break games open in that way. He's a very good rush creator, puck carrier, good skill one-on-one. He shined in a lot of moments against the Penguins. Actually, there was I don't remember which game it was, but he took over a game, and you could tell from kind of the jump that he was the most impactful player, and you have to get him on the ice. And that was the case for really a lot of the games. He was one of their kind of underrated forwards in that series. Another obvious one for Flyers fans is Owen Tippett because of his speed. He maybe not as much in the playoffs. It was more so in the regular season where he just catch teams off guard for some reason. They don't know how fast he is. He's one of the fastest players in the league, and he's kind of a bigger guy and kind of physical, and he can drive. So he would create shots and draw penalties that way and create rushes like 2-on-1s and stuff. So that's another guy I'm looking out for to, again, just break games open because offense is going to be hard to come by, and you have to somehow score goals because if you're like Ottawa, for example, they didn't score a lot of goals, especially at like the start where I think they got shut out in game one. You have to avoid that sort of outcome.
Yeah, and I think personally I would go almost the opposite. I would look at the rest of the centers that you didn't name and say Dvorak, Cates, and Couturier, and see which of them gets lined up against which line. Like I could see Cates going up against the Stankoven line, and I think Cates is one of their strongest defense. I mean, he is one of the best defensive players in the league, but like I think that line will do a good job trying to shut them down. And maybe Tocchet's going to have to adjust, and maybe it's a kind of a hybrid of the Couturier line and the Cates line. But it's going to be hard to stop those guys because confidence is a big thing, especially with young guys like Stankoven and Blake. They're just going to be buzzing right now. But for the Flyers, like Cates is unbelievable. He should be in the Selke conversation every single season. Couturier, he's been there. He knows what he's doing defensively. He's not the player he once was, but like he's also a Selke level center when he's playing at his best. And then even Dvorak, like he's had an unbelievable season. So those three centers, I think, is going to be a really big piece for the Flyers heading into this series. I'll stick with you, Justin. What's going to be the biggest X factor? What's going to make or break this series for the Philadelphia Flyers?
Well, I already mentioned offense, and that is a big one. You're going to have to score goals to win hockey games. That's pretty obvious. But it's almost like I have de facto faith in Dan Vladar to just do his thing. But that is not a guarantee. I mean, again, if you're going to score goals, you got to give up something defensively. It's going to have to happen. And the Canes, like I said, they're very good on the forecheck. This is not the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is a pretty brutal matchup. So Vladar is going to really have to even take another step on what he was. He's going to have to steal games. It's just going to have to happen. He got a couple shutouts, I believe. That's the type of performance that you need, but he's going to be facing tougher shots. So, yeah, I'm going to be looking out for Dan Vladar. He's going to have to be their MVP for sure.
Yeah, I mean, goaltending is like it's been the story of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Like you see, Anderson has been so well, Vladar has been so well, Olmark was so like. There's just so many good goalies in the playoffs, and even a great performance isn't going to guarantee anything. So they're going to have to do their best to keep as many pucks away from him as they can. And like I kind of mentioned earlier, like he's not a goalie that plays a ton of hockey up until this season. Is the fatigue ever going to set in? I don't know. Yeah, he's going to be somebody to keep an eye on, and definitely could be the biggest X factor of this series. What about you, Zach? What do you think for the Hurricanes?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of say the same thing. It's going to be goaltending. Can Freddie do the same thing? Because, I mean, look at the matchup. It's, Anderson 1.1 goals against, Vladar 1.61. You're talking fifth and then sixth best in terms of goals against average. And then even in the save percentage, I mean, Anderson was a 955. Vladar was fifth at 937. So, yeah, you're going to have two goalies that I think are going to be, what is going to make this series, because if you look at the top 10 across the entire board for all the goalies so far, almost all of them are Eastern Conference, and you have two guys who are top six in two different categories, and the way they've played, I think that's going to be a huge X factor. Is basically who's going to blink and who's going to outlast the other one. And then if they have to say go to other guys in the system, the Hurricanes have Brandon Busty and Peter Kochetkov. They almost have a three-headed monster in our depth alone for goaltending. I know, and I'm not going to overlook the Flyers and what they have, with just, I think, even there, it's like, you just never know, because it's the playoffs. That's going to be a really big thing. And for me, I think it's also going to be special teams, because I feel like just if it's going to be a close series, is which one is going to outlast the other. Because like I said, Hurricanes are first on the penalty kill, Flyers are 10th. I know power play, they're kind of somewhat even for the most part. So I think it's just who is going to take advantage of that. And it's, are the Flyers going to take a lot of penalties? And if that's the case, are the Hurricanes going to be able to capitalize on that? Because they only got 15 power plays and scored 2 against Ottawa. It's now they're playing a different team, a different system. It's, can they, like Justin said, the Hurricanes are a strong forward-checking team. Like, this is probably the most aggressive I've seen them ever in the playoffs, because usually it's like they'll just dump it and give enough pressure to force the other team. And now it's the Hurricanes are ultra aggressive, because against the Senators, I think they had the most ozone time average for the entire first round, because they were just hounding the Senators the entire time. Like, there was, you see Stankoven and Blake Hall, or just whoever's on the ice, like they were just pressuring them to death to create turnovers, I think. And that turns into the special teams. And if the Hurricanes run shorthanded, I mean, they can score shorthanded goals too. I mean, Seth Jarvis had 4 shorties in the regular season. Like, I think special teams and goaltending are going to be the biggest X factors for me for the Hurricanes. And just, and then also depth. I think the depth is going to be a big one too, because, the Hurricanes, 1 through 4 on the lines, 3 defensive pairs. I think it's just the depth of the Hurricanes. I think if this does go 5, 6, 7 games, I think it's just them having the fresh legs and having a full team that's ready to go. And just this more put together roster that I've seen in a while doing these playoff previews. I think that's going to be a huge thing too for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, their depth, and it's not like that they're people playing above their class. Like they've got really good depth. Like William Carrier has been great. And Mark Jankowski, he's just so good. It's such a good fourth line player for them. And then, like, even not as deep in the lineup, but like Stahl and Martinook, you can't ask for much more on your third line than those two.
And the fact you have Nikolai Ehlers on that third line is still crazy to think about. That
right, exactly.
He can have like 70 points, and he played like most of the third line for the back half of the season.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. The Flyers are just, or the Hurricanes are like, every part of their roster is just so deep. It's yeah. With the Flyers, speaking of, is there anything else that you wanted to add that is going to bring them to victory? What else do they need to do?
There are a few things here. First of all, I think that the Flyers may benefit from kind of a more physical post-whistle shenanigans type of thing. Against the Penguins, that did help them in Game 3, where they really just, it was all over the place. It was that connect me, whatever that was after the whistle. Both teams get thrown in the box, like all 5 guys. Flyers score on the power play, momentum completely changed. The Flyers win that game easily. And against Carolina, like, let's be honest, the Hurricanes are a lot better than the Flyers are. If you can introduce some randomness into the series, that benefits Philly. Like, the Canes are going to win on their own. If you can sort of mess up their mojo a bit, maybe that'll help you out. But the Canes are able to play that sort of style, that physical. So Something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the first 2.5 games were pretty timid between the Hurricanes and the Hurricanes and the Senators. But like you said, things got physical. It started with the Hall hit on Sanderson. Nobody liked that. And then in the second game, it was the Greg sucker punch, and it was there was so much shenaniganery in the last game and a half of that series. Yeah, the Flyers can certainly play that kind of game too. And if they can do it and get into the head of the Hurricanes players, I like that would be a huge win for them. Zach, anything else you wanted to add on some keys to victory? What else is going to get them the win in this series?
Yeah, I think just stick to the mature game that they were, because you saw that third period after all the shenaniganery in the second period of game 4, they played a more mature game. And I think, they didn't really do a lot of retaliatory penalties and stuff like that. It's just, it seemed like whenever there was a scrum, it was always a Hurricane going into the box more than anything else. There was never like an even thing or, a center gets to go out of a scrum. Usually is mainly the Hurricanes getting it. So I would think that if they can kind of just stick to what they did through the first couple of games and just be physical, like they out hit the Senators in game 1. I think they had like 21 hits in the first period. They had like 57 through the entire game. If they can just keep into their style, but keep along that physicality that they brought, but not go into the retaliatory stuff and, stick up for each other, which they did the entire series. I think they'll find a way to not get into the randomness that's going to happen, because you already saw with the Senators. And I think that they kind of know, okay, the Flyers are going to be a different animal. They got a lot of guys who can, try to get you going. But I think if the Hurricanes can manage to do what they did for the first half of that series against Ottawa and just stay mature and not fall into that trap, I think they're going to be fine. It's just, not falling for stuff. I think as long as they don't retaliate and take unnecessary dumb penalties, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, and it's going to be hard. The Flyers are good at that. The Flyers have historically always been good at that. But the Canes could hold their composure pretty well. And we saw that in the first round. So we'll move on to some kind of predictions here. Zach, who do you think is going to be the MVP of the second round series?
Oh man, I mean, there's a lot of good choices. You could look at that second line, could look at goaltending, but I'm gonna go. I predict him in round 1. I was kind of surprised he stayed quiet against, but it's a former team. I'm going with Shane Gostisbehere. I think he's gonna break out in this one.
I like it. Justin, what about you? Who's going to be the MVP of the series?
Well, I got to say a Flyer. I will go with Dan Vladar, because I think I said him last time. And if the Flyers are going to make this close, it's going to be because of Vladar.
Yeah, it's going to have to be Vladar. He's going to have to continue what he's been doing. So you can't go wrong with that pick. I think I have to go Stankoven after kind of that first round series. He's just been so good. And he scored the first goal of, was it all 4 games or was it 3 of 4?
3 of the 4. Taylor Hall scored the first one in game 4.
Yeah,
but he did, but Stankoven did score in every game. So
yeah, exactly. And his efforts go far beyond the score sheet too. Like he's so good even beyond scoring every game. So series predictions, Zach. Who are you gonna take in the second round?
I thought about going back to 6 again, but I'm pretty confident where the Hurricanes are at right now, and I think the Flyers are going to be an interesting team to face, but I think it's Hurricanes in 5.
Justin, what are you thinking?
What he said is fair, but Flyers in 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the Flyers are going to win, it will certainly be in probably 7. But if the Hurricanes are going to win, I think 5 games is fair. And those are kind of the 2 decisions that I was kind of torn on. And I think I am going to stick with the Hurricanes in 5. I think I would like to see the Flyers. There's just such a young and fun team, but the Hurricanes are due. This looks like it's going to be their year. They've been playing some of the best playoff hockey I've ever seen them play. And it's going to be impossible to stop these guys. The Colorado Avalanche might be the only ones that are true competitors for these guys right now. And I mean, it's playoffs. Anything can happen. We've seen way bigger upsets, but I'm gonna go Canes in 5 as well. And I think Zach, we both agreed last round too that it was Canes in 6. So we got the team right, not the games.
Yeah,
I
like
don't
said,
remember what your
I was
prediction was,
surprised.
Justin. Do you?
What was that?
Do you remember your prediction for round 1?
Well, I did say Flyers in 6. I do remember that. I was thinking that, they're going to sweep them, but then they lost the 2 games, and then I was right. So,
hey, you know what? Nothing wrong with that.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. If you made it this far into the video, Zach, Justin, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a great episode. It should be a really good series. Even if it is a shorter one, it's going to be fun. And yeah, make sure to check out all of Zach and Justin's content on thehockeywriters.com. Make sure to check out all the other series previews that will be coming, and follow the Substack, and make sure to get all the latest content right to your email. And we will see you next time.